Hello, friends. Dave Bjork here, lung cancer survivor, patient advocate, and yes, I'm the research evangelist. And welcome to the Research Evangelist podcast, coming to you as always from just outside of Boston, Massachusetts. You know, the Greek meaning of evangelist is bringing the good news. And I like to think that I'm bringing the good news in cancer research and care by interviewing people in life sciences that are doing amazing work. And this month marks 18 months since I published the first episode of the podcast. And my guest was Dr. Brennan Stiles, who's now the chief of thoracic surgery and surgical oncology at Montefiore and Albert Einstein College of Medicine. In so many ways, he was the perfect first guest. He's accomplished, he's humble, he's a great guy. And by the way, did you know he grew up on a dairy farm in Virginia? Like, who knew there were dairy farms in Virginia, LOL. It's been a remarkable journey for me personally, and I wanted to share with you what I've learned from all the amazing guests who I've had the privilege of interviewing, and to tell you where I'm going with the podcast, The Research Evangelist. And today, I call this my gratitude episode. First, I want to thank the 65 amazing humans who I've had the honor of having on my show so far. I am humbled by the work that you do every day to support patients in research and care, and just so grateful that you took the time to share your stories with me and my listeners. And I'm proud to call you friends. From Dr. Stiles to Dr. Narges Flores-Duma, thoracic oncologist at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, to Dr. Mike Caligiuri, president of City of Hope in California, to Dr. Ana Velasquez, thoracic oncology at the University of California, San Francisco, to Dr. Chris Lathan, the chief clinical and access equity officer at the Dana-Farber, and Dr. Misako Nagasaka, lung cancer oncologist at UC Irvine, to David Carbone, who's the director of the James Thoracic Oncology Center at Ohio State, to Dr. Leah Backus, who is a thoracic surgeon at Stanford and the Palo Alto VA, and to my last episode, Coral Olazagasti, thoracic medical oncologist at the Sylvester Cancer Center in Miami. And that's just to name a few. There are so many, many more. I don't want to go through the entire list, but that's the range of guests that I've had so far. Thank you all for being on the show. All 65 of you. We're just getting started, and I promise the next 65 will be equally as amazing as these 65. I'd also like to thank my listeners and friends, all of you who have supported me in this journey by listening to my show, helping me find interesting guests and topics to cover, and I really appreciate all your support and guidance. I started this podcast with a mission to share stories about amazing people in lung cancer care and research, and I will continue with this mission because there's so much happening in lung cancer research that I want to evangelize about. And with every advancement, every new treatment, breakthrough, and discovery, there are real people behind the scenes making this possible. My stories are about these humans making a difference and having an impact. There are, I think, 9 biomarkers now for non-small cell lung cancer that have a targeted treatment. There's also immunotherapy and new combinations, and so much more happening that are giving lung cancer patients and their caregivers hope. But as the months went by, I also started to recognize that not all patients are getting access to the optimal care. I also recognized common themes and areas of interest of my guests that aligned with issues that I care about. Those include health equity and access and diversity and lung cancer screening and biomarker testing and health literacy, and really overall access to receiving optimal care. So I wanted to share this with you and the lens from which I view these issues. I've become much more aware of just how privileged my lung cancer experience was. I had no real barriers to getting the best care possible. I'm a white guy who lives in the suburbs of Boston. I have resources. I had great insurance. I had the top surgeon at Mass General Hospital, an amazing care team, and a supportive wife who's a nurse. I had no transportation, language, or cultural barriers. In the past year, I've become more and more aware of the gaps that exist for so many patients whose experience is very different than mine. The people on my show are aligned with me on this. Every patient deserves access to the same level of care that I received as a privileged white man treated at a large academic cancer center. All of it, period. No matter where they live, the color of their skin, their gender, their age, their lived experience, their culture. That's how I see health equity. It's so unfair I'm not going to solve all the complex reasons for the inequities, but so many of my guests are working to solve difficult problems and caring for patients, doing important research, but also tackling tough social justice issues. I'll give you just a few examples of people who have been on my show. For example, I learned from brilliant women like Dr. Flores Duma and others just how many disparities there are in cancer care for women in medicine. She co-founded Latinas in Medicine to bring more diversity to the field because patients want to be treated by clinicians who look like them and maybe more importantly have lived and understand the lived experience of patients from diverse backgrounds. It's great to see more women in thoracic oncology, and people like Dr. Flores Duma and many others are committed to making change. And I support them 100%. But so much still needs to be done to increase diversity in the clinicians that are treating diverse patient populations. I also learned about health equity from Dr. Chris Lathan when he was on the show, and the work that he and many others are doing in Boston to provide access to care at Dana-Farber. I learned about lung cancer screening from Dr. Drew Moganaki, who is the chief of thoracic oncology in the UCLA Department of Radiation Oncology. He's super passionate about screening because the earlier lung cancer is found, the better the outcomes for patients. And he's also doing a lot of work to get screening for our veterans who are at risk for lung cancer. I learned all about lung cancer biomarker testing from so many of my guests, like Dr. Carbone and Dr. Lisa Sequist, who's a thoracic oncologist at Mass General Hospital. This was really a common theme and something that I've become really passionate about now that I understand it better. Every patient diagnosed with lung cancer deserves access to NGS testing or next generation sequencing testing. Many guests told us about the challenges and barriers that they face because of the color of their skin or because of their accents. And some of the women talked about how they were discriminated against or not taken seriously by male colleagues, another common theme. And one really cool theme I learned about is the importance of mentoring. I think every single guest talked about the meaningful mentorship and relationships from people who trained them or supported them through their journey. This was a common thread. No matter where they trained, they talked fondly about these important relationships. Dr. Ola Zagasti talked about how grateful she is to have Dr. Flores Duma as a mentor to help her build confidence to be herself and get past imposter syndrome. But it's fun to hear about the people who have helped these great people and now how they are paying it forward by mentoring the next generation of clinicians and researchers. And Dr. Priti Hegde, who's the chief scientific officer at Foundation Medicine, helped me understand the role of sponsorship and how it's different from mentorship. I always thought they were the same thing, but mentors really are leaders that people look up to and to help teach and help learn to be better clinicians. And sponsors are those who actually reach down and pull them up to help advance their careers or get a seat at the table, especially for women in science, like recommending them for an important position. One phrase I love as I think of both sponsorship and mentorship is keeping the ladder down for the next person to empower, nurture, and support, particularly women who are coming up behind them. I could go on and on about the amazing stories that I've heard from these amazing guests, but I will continue to find and share more of these remarkable people on the Research Evangelist podcast. So thank you all. I really appreciate it. This is truly meaningful journey for me. And special thanks to Attila Forrest and Guy Weatherby for helping produce my show, and to Dean and Guy Weatherby for their strategic guidance. And thank you, Dean, John Wetstein, and Chris Draft for encouraging me to take this leap of faith and to start this podcast 18 months ago. There is much more to come, and I hope you will continue on this journey with me.